I've got to deal with these messages and then we'll move on. This one from Victor in Copenhagen, Denmark, says that, says that good program, and here is my take on it. JIDA is not the way to go. It's just with the government providing vocational training. I think I've read this earlier. You posted it on a different platform. My producer just brought this to me. I've read it. You posted it on a different platform. This one says, your panelists see the good suggestive ideas you are bringing out about this youth employment program. It is the mark of the typical Ghanaian to sit as a panelist and discuss good ideas. Our problem is sincere implementation, putting the country first before any political party. If we keep ignoring this principle, then we should expect more corruption in the future. Jonas sent that from Lashibi. This one is coming from Nana Kwesi. He's an insurance agent. He says he's sending from D.C. Is it Dan Suman or from Washington, D.C.? He says, there is more employment opportunities in the insurance industry. Example is agency, and I have been selling insurance products after SHS, and it's helped me complete my university education. All the government needs is to direct the insurance commissioner to insist on good working conditions from insurance companies. Okay, insurance companies, okay. You said something, aside the what? Commission, they pay back. Okay, that you didn't get that correct. When you type, go over it again, and then you may find that you made a mistake that you need to really correct. This one says, Mr. Bento is struggling to find deficiencies. Going through the various portions and trying to impugn political underpinning only serves to buttress my position. We must discuss this, taking into consideration the realities of the day. In any case, during implementation, any loopholes identified can be blocked through amendments. Thank you for those messages. This is where I start with Abdul Malik Kubaku Jr. On the AFCON budget and the matters that has come up as far as that is concerned. Some say we are not showing sufficient accountability. We didn't put the budgets before the people who ought to know it. We came back, and we are now putting before them what they have no option than to accept.
Well, the minister responsible for youth and sports appear to be advancing an argument that opens up a new space. His view is that the disclosure of the budget prior to the tournament would have been unstrategic, and that could have created some problems for us. I have struggled very hard to appreciate the logic of his point, because if we're talking of on-field matters in terms of, you know, spying on other teams or finding out your strategies, the coaching, that's a different matter. But the last time I checked, I didn't see that in the budget in terms of content of a budget. Perhaps disclosure of even, let's say, how much bonus will be paid to a player per match. Really, I don't see how that will provide any advantage for the opponents. So I have a difficulty with what he said, because he is on record as having previously even announced budgets for some of these tournaments. In this case, the World Cup that we just ended in Brazil. He announced the budget ahead of time. There are precedents to that effect too, even for public consumption. Then, of course, also, I remember this particular AFCON thing. He was in Parliament. I think it was 18th December 2014. I have the Hansard here. And a certain interaction went on. He promised to meet the committee and provide them with the budget. The speaker, at the end of the day, actually entreated him to ensure that he did so, and he promised that he would do that. I'm not sure that happened, you know. So I really didn't see much difficulty in disclosing to the public that, look, this is the amount that government has approved for our participation, preparation and participation in this particular tournament. That's just an announcement, a disclosure of an X amount of money has been approved. His view is that it will be subjected to all sorts of speculations and arguments and debates that could demoralize the boys or create mischief in the air and all that. So that's why he chose not to do so. I'm not convinced about that. Just good practices in terms of good governance, in terms of transparency. A mere disclosure of an amount that has been approved should not be a classified matter. And whatever people will do is immaterial. You would have done your side of the bargain to the public. So I have a difficulty with the non-disclosure and the rationalization that is now accompanying it. I think it is not something that is sustainable. But beyond that, he's going to Parliament eventually.
Right.
He's giving some figures.
Right. $5.8 million.
Yes, I'm not about to judge that. I've seen the breakdown. It's not a detailed one aside, because for auditing purposes, we have to go further than what he has presented to Parliament. But it's fair. It's also not new. Check previous tournaments, World Cup and the rest. If you go through Hansard, various ministers of youth and sports went to Parliament to give a breakdown. First of all, the amount that had been spent, amount that was approved, how much was spent, and a breakdown. I can remember 2006, 2010, and I'm not sure if 2014 World Cup has been done, but at least it's done the AFCON one. It's subject to auditing. There's no doubt. What accounts must come before auditing. So that procedure is fair deal. Going to Parliament to announce it's all in the interest of good governance. So I really think the difficulty has been with how the minister has reacted to questions posed by journalists. Some very needless, in my candid opinion. He's somebody I have known for quite a long time, and I think he's very well cultured, you know. He's a classic gentleman. He's been on this show many times. He comports himself very well. His communication has been very fine all this time. This time around, I think something went wrong. And I'm finding it very difficult to appreciate what went wrong. And so I've been listening to him carefully, and I realize that he's reacting to what post-World Cup Brazil environment, the things that came up and how things were done. That's what he's reacting to. And in so doing, it's become over-defensive. And even, I'm choosing my words carefully because I don't like to attack friends. You know, and he's a friend, and I have to be honest with you, he's somebody I like. But I think this time around, there's a certain communication gap that he's committed, and that has not endeared him to not just the media, but the public. I would wish he does a retraction of some of the things he said and come back on board, you know. So, yes, questions must be asked.
No, why does it appear that nobody wants to appreciate where he's coming from? Journalists are asking him for the detailed accounting on radio. And he says, this is not my job. You are asking me to do the job that the administrators, you know, in the various offices at the Sports Ministry and the Finance Ministry are supposed to be doing. That's not my job.
I'm not sure that was a question that was posed to him. First of all, before the tournament, people had asked, how much has government voted for this tournament? Was that too difficult to disclose? What was classified about that? So that answer could have been provided, and it helps you, it helps the government, it helps the public in the name of transparency. The failure to do that disclosure did not help to promote transparency for government itself. So I think that was an omission. Not that he violated any law, I'm not saying so, but best practices in terms of good governance, a disclosure of that X amount. His view is that would have been subjected to all sorts of arguments and debates that would lead to demoralization of the boys. I disagree with that. Okay, so that's it. Now you've come back. They said, oh, how much did we take to Equatorial Guinea? Again, your view is that, oh, I'll go to Parliament, it will be there. That's the law. The law, of course, you go to Parliament, inform Parliament, but that is just not much of an obligation as such. It's done, but it's done in terms of the convention. The real thing is when you've submitted an account for your internal auditors to go through, and then, of course, the Auditor General comes in, queries all that, does the proper auditing, and brings it back to Parliament, which is the Public Accounts Committee, and then is subjected to debate. I'm saying that if the minister had not been over-defensive, if he had not been reacting to the Brazilian thing, this whole crisis...
And you are calling on him to apologize, like some others I've heard also are asking him.
No, I'm not asking him to apologize. I'm asking him to... You see, he could explain himself. He could... You don't have to render an apology in the manner that people would expect. There's a way to cure this mischief.
Okay.
Look, he's somebody who had been very, very, very friendly with the media for a long time. He's well known for that. This is not him. As far as I'm concerned, this is uncharacteristic.
That does not mean that he should condone what he finds to be useless when the media is, perpetrating sin.
If you could retract
the use of the word useless.
Yeah, those things. It's not fair.
I see.
It's not fair.
Kofi, why do we call on people to give apologies simply because we disagree with their point of view on a matter?
There is this thing about dealing with the public and being a public servant and managing public resources. It requires you to be extremely servient in your approach. If you can't handle that, you don't go there. And I agree with what Kweku is saying. I know Honorable Ayariga very well. A very fine gentleman. He clearly was out of character. And like he said, yes, he can find a way to deal with it. But the thing is, you see, these are public funds, and this is a country that is struggling with everything. And so people are very sensitive when you tend to be flippant with public funds. So I cannot appreciate the sentiment, but this is coming from the bigger problem of the general malaise with Black Stars management. And that stress is what the minister is having to deal with. Let's not go there. I heard him talk about people not knowing public management and whatever it is, and that's why they were asking the questions they were asking. You should also not go there. Budget 101, if we are talking management, a budget is prospective in its definition. You do that before you go. So you don't come back and give us the budget. You don't tell me I'll give it to you afterwards. Afterwards, you render accounts. And you have a responsibility to do that. The next point that I think everybody in public office must note, with all due respect, and excuse my language, even if a journalist is asking you stupid questions, you should never see yourself as speaking to the journalist. You are speaking to the whole country. So if you take on the journalist, everybody else takes umbrage. Because people see it as, this is us you are addressing. So you see, journalists can get away with, asking stupid questions, but you can't get away with addressing the journalist the way you think he must be addressed in terms of his stupid questions. Or
you agree with me that in this country we have very lazy journalists?
My brother, I have had my problem with journalists.
Yes, who will not do any preparatory work at all and just get onto the radio or television and begin to speak.
Absolutely.
They ought to be told that that is who they are, and they should do better than that.
Excuse me again, I don't mean to go up against journalists, but there are some journalists, they are atrocious. And I've had issues with them. But my point is this, especially when you're a minister, and I'm not a minister, when you're dealing with public funds, okay, when you're dealing with issues which are emotive, football is emotive, and of extreme interest to the average Ghanaian wherever they are, then you must appreciate that the journalist you're addressing is not the one you're addressing. You're addressing the whole country, okay? Yeah. And even with the issues themselves, you talk about, public management, the budget is another, a budget is perspective. So technically you were wrong. Whichever way it is, look, we all agree. We know the Honorable Ayariga. I will vote for him anytime. He's a fine gentleman. There are traits he has which I wish I had. Maybe I would have done worse. That's why I'm not in his shoes. So let's put this in context.
Right.
We need to fix this Black Stars management thing and have some things clarified so that people won't ask for budgets. I, for one, for instance, think that Black Stars must always be paid in cedis, must be paid in Ghana in an account here in this country. There must be no question about that. These things must be ordinary, they must be routine, and nobody must have to ask questions about that. Then you have a situation where a fine gentleman like Ayariga is caught in a situation like this, and then everybody has to be on his case.
So you are one of those who say he should come back and,
look, it's not so much properly. An apology per se, but I think he will find a way when he's calmer to say that, look, in the heat of things, he may have used some words that he didn't need to use. Okay, I don't think he is the architect of the confusion. He really was brought in to try and, help calm things. So I think he'll find a way
but
to
it does seem that he cannot say that those words came out, without any prompting, because it appears he said it more than once.
Yes, more than once on
different
places.
platforms.
Yes. So he would have to find a way and not necessarily apologize to the journalists.
Okay.
Yeah.
He must find a way to come and say, look, I mean, he appreciates now that he was speaking to the country. The issues are emotive, okay? And when you have a country that is struggling the way we are struggling, okay, and we have all kinds of corruption stories around, especially with football, okay, then you have people who are very sensitive to anything regarding that. I think Ayariga understands this. He will find a way to come back and try and paper over it, speaking to Ghanaians, okay, because really, it's public office, they're public funds, people are interested, we are emotive about it. Look, this is the first time in my life I've seen Black Stars play. And I've seen people say we wish them evil. We wish that they will succeed.
There were Ghanaians cheering goals against us.
Okay, so it's a serious matter. Football is the opium of the masses. You mess with it, you're messing with your life.
I like that.
Oh, Karl Marx rendered in a different way. Very interesting. Now, Abuga Pele, you are familiar with this particular terrain. The sports ministry, we are told of mafias that, undo people, and I would say Free Ankara has had his own baptism. Initially, he said, look, whoever they are, mafias, I dare them. But unfortunately, well, he couldn't survive for too long. What do you have to say about the discussion that has come up in respect of the budget for the AFCON?
Yeah, as a member of the subcommittee on youth and sports in Parliament, anytime we're going for any major competition, particularly when we're going for the World Cup, demands were made by members of the committee for the budget of the World Cup. And when you got to the AFCON, it was the same story. But you see, I think that, like Mr. Kokuwako was saying, the sentiments that were expressed, that occurred after the World Cup, have tended to engulf almost everything that we do now about football. Football has always been a very sentimental issue, like he said, opium of the masses. But it got to its peak during the World Cup, and particularly what happened during the World Cup and afterwards. So I think that one should be a bit careful in talking about football, particularly if you happen to be the minister. You have to be very careful, because somebody just made a comment, said when we were even playing the AFCON Cup, for the first time, people were wishing that Ghana would lose some of the matches. Yes. And you can see a deep-seated feeling.
Yeah, fallout from the World Cup.
Yeah, from the World Cup. So I think that the budget, from now on, I think we are beginning to learn from the experience of the World Cup and what has just happened after the AFCON. I think Ghanaians are beginning to learn that there must be a structured way of engaging in expenditure, accounting to the people, to Parliament, and so forth, so that we avoid all these controversies that often occur after any major tournament.
Like Kweku and Kofi said, the budget should be known before they go for
the tournament. I don't see why. But you don't know exactly how much you spend. With football, it's a bit difficult.
What do you say to those critics?
That's expenditure, yes, but the amount.
But you can do an estimate, a budget. You can do an estimate.
What do you say to critics who say they are not deserving of the extra money that GMPC is giving them after
the Black Stars?
Yes.
Oh, I think that is all part of the sentiments that were generated by the World Cup. But I think that the boys did very well. They played a good game, and we should appreciate what they did.
What do you say about that?
We should motivate them and continue to motivate them.
There is a specific issue, and then there's the bigger, more serious issue. 25,000 for Black Stars. If you came from Samson, there won't be that hue and cry. The real problem with the GMPC issue is that here is a company wholly owned by government, which sometimes purports to act as a private company and sometimes purports to act as a government institution. They go and borrow money, they say we don't need this, then the president instructs them to do something else and they have to do it. Everybody is thinking, how can the board of GMPC decide to take public funds on their own volition and give it out the way they did? And we have heard Honorable Ayariga say the president didn't even know about it. Okay, you can explain it this way or that way, but again, in a country where there is such stress financially, when you find people deal with public institutions whichever way they are structured, and seem to wantonly dissipate what in essence should be public funds, you would have serious questions.
No, but I think that it's because
issue.
it's coming from GMPC.
Yes.
But I think that the question that should be answered, do the boys deserve what was given to them? That's the question you posed. So, and one way or the other, we needed to motivate the boys. We needed to give them something for the performance they exhibited in
Honorable, if the question is,
my issue, I'm not addressing where the source of the money. I'm not addressing that. What I'm concerned about is, do these boys, by their performance at the AFCON...
Yes, he has chosen to address that.
Yeah.
And that's
also so I think that there are two different things
right
altogether.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, let's hear you finally on the AFCON budget and the matters that have come up.
See, I'm not surprised my friend Bensil is emphasizing so much on anything he will want to link it to have that the way people are struggling, the country is in financial stress, and or you see, whatever the situation, you in your managing your own home as a man, your children will need money for school fees, but there will be the need for maybe do something else with the same money. So when it comes, it's all about, you just said something very, very, interesting. Football is the opium of the masses. And that is even why we need to motivate the guys more. So that, and so it doesn't really matter where the money comes from. Wherever it comes from, the purpose of it is good intention and must be accepted. And that is where how I look at it. I am also a member of together with Abu Kapele, I'm a member of the sports committee in Parliament. And I know that we had some interaction with the minister and his team before they left for Equatorial Guinea. And so there were some indications as to the projections, how much is going to be used and whatnot. Now, I only see the problem as at what point, who do you account to? Do you have to account to the journalist, or you have to account to Parliament? But I think both sides.
Don't perceive it as accounting to the journalist.
The
journalist is only providing you a platform to reach out to the citizens.
I think that both are necessary. Whatever you give to Parliament, you should be able to give a summary of it to the public. Do you understand? Parliament may go into details and want to know, but the public, they want simple information. So if at any point they ask you that as a minister, how much do you spend here, at least you have some general ideas about what is going into what, so we could say those things. But let me also add that I think that Ayariga's statements, though not wrong, but it's because of our own experience from Brazil. People have been so harsh on him, the way he approached it. Because I listened to his interview with Kwame, and the way Kwame handled it, and the way he also responded. See, at the point, Kwame said that, so you won't tell us how much you spend, then he said, no, I'll report to Parliament. Then Kwame said something like, you hold me in disdain. You understand? It really didn't sound well. I mean, myself, I felt bad about the situation. You understand? So I think that anybody who knows Ayariga knows that that is not his nature. And under serious pressure, he's somebody who can contain pressure. So I have been with him. We are schoolmates from school up to now. So we know each other very well. So we know that is not his nature. And I'm happy both of you have confirmed his nature. So when something like this comes, maybe at that point something went wrong. So you want to expect that some damage control can be done in a very friendly way. But in actual fact, when you listen to what he said, I think that he was not actually wrong in what he was stating. To say that I will report to Parliament, I will take the details to Parliament, I will present my budget to Parliament. But like I'm saying, in my view, even though you are responsible to Parliament, you have some responsibility towards the public. And so if they ask you, you may be able to disclose one or two to it. So generally, let's say that maybe he was caught in a bad situation. And we hope that the public should know that we can all err sometimes, so that we will not be able to be too harsh on him, and sometimes when you go too far,
another thing I
it will affect him.
I should add is
but yes, to err is human, to forgive is divine, they say. But
yes.
if you don't admit that you have erred,
oh, I know the way the conversation is going. He, of course, when friends talk to him and people are playing back what he says, I mean, being who he is and his own nature, he will come to it and say that, look, maybe I said the right thing in the wrong forum. You understand?
Now let's hear Bamvi Selome. I'm not sure that's how the name is supposed to be pronounced. He says, why do we have accountants from the sports ministry on board Black Stars trip? Why should the minister answer questions the accountants are supposed to answer? Okay, Brian Boabing Samuel says that, what sense does it make to spend over $8 million for a tournament? Is it not supposed to be 5.8? Okay, that's what you wanted to write. $5.8 million for a tournament with the winning prize of $1.5 million. What kind of people do we have ruling Ghana? This really is more scandalous than what happened in Brazil. Spending over 5.8 million for a tournament in Africa, I am not surprised at all with Ayarga as a sports minister. Okay, and then, okay, these are all about Jida and Jida. Sorry about that. Okay, so your views and comments are so welcome. 1422, that's the text line, 1422, and we'll share them with everyone else that is listening and watching the show.